Hi, my name is Noel Davis with World Composting, and today I sort of have a mega update for you. So I have 4 systems I'm going to update today. I know it's been a long time since I've done any updates. I have been feeding and taking care of the systems. I just haven't had time to make videos. And I've also been away for a couple weeks as I was in New Mexico doing some backpacking with my son. So it was a great experience, but now I'm back. I need to kind of catch everyone up on what's going on and show you some of the changes that we're going to be making. So we're going to start off with our BN-Link 10-gallon grow bag. We're going to then go to our urban worm bags, and then last but not least, our VermiBag Max. So all these have different, 2 of them have different worms in them than the others. So we've got 2 that have African Nightcrawlers, which is our BN-Link, and our urban worm bag that has African Nightcrawlers. We have 1 urban worm bag with the European Nightcrawlers, and then I've got the VermiBag with the regular red wigglers that almost everyone uses to start with. So with that, we're going to make sure to add some food. We're going to add a lot of water. I have not updated these in about 2 weeks now, or 3 weeks now, because I went on vacation. I fed them all right before I went on vacation, and now I'm back, and well, now it's time to do that update. So with that, I'm going to jump into these systems, and again, if you have any questions or comments, please leave them down below and let me know what you think. I typically don't leave them that long, and I know as I said, I know I have not been making content as often, but it's been a little bit busy, and it's just sometimes easier for me to run downstairs and feed the worms and come back up or give them water or whatever they need and continue on with whatever I need to do for my job and my family. So with that, let's jump into our BN-Link and see how it's going. First up on our list is our 10-gallon grow bag here that we have from BN-Link. And first off, it's not a lot of moisture right here on the surface, so that's kind of surprising. As I said, it's been 3 weeks since I probably added water to this. But we're going to go ahead and dig around and see how it is. It looks like the outside, though, it's kind of caving in a little bit here, but the outside's very dry. Hopefully this middle section was able to keep it moist enough for the worms. Let's just go ahead and dig in here and see what we find. Very moist. Actually, this looks perfect for the worms as far as moisture content. I'm not seeing any worms yet, though, which is a little bit surprising. I did expect them to make it through this without any issues. Oh, there we go, our first worm. A little bit on the small side. This is probably a juvenile. They're probably going to be slowly repopulating this bin as we build it back up again. But this is what can happen if you're gone for a while, especially with one of these systems that's maybe a little bit more on the drier side. Oh, another one right here. Again, another juvenile. So they're starting to hatch out here. Whoop, big one right there. Oh, hold on, we missed one of the larger ones. So you can see it moving a little bit, but a little bit lethargic. So we're probably going to have to try to really feed these, really get some moisture in here. And it looks like, no, I thought I saw another smaller one. But they're inside the center section where obviously all the moisture was. They need that moisture to survive. So I don't want to dig through here too much. What we're going to do is we're going to add a lot of food in here, into the center section here. Actually, we're going to add some paper first. I do like to have the food off the bottom of the system. We're going to do that. And now for this, we're going to again add our Vitamix output. I have found that this does work pretty well. It does heat up. It does grow mold, which are all the things that the worms tend to like. We're going to put a big spoonful of that in there. But we do need to cover this up. So we're going to go ahead and cover this up with the worms there even. And the reason why we need to cover it up really well is because this stuff tends to mold over if you don't. So we're going to cover that up really well. And then I do have, let me grab a spoonful of this here, or a big cupful, my water that is supercharged with our, biochar. There we go. So I've got some of that over here. I'm going to add a couple spoonfuls of this on here. This doesn't have quite as much charcoal as it used to. I'm starting to run out. I need to make some more. And I haven't had a chance to. So there we go. We've got some of that on. We're going to go ahead and add a little bit more cardboard. Just to sprinkle that on top. These African Nightcrawlers that are in the system, they do tend to like cardboard, I've noticed in the past. They're eating it a little bit slower this time. And now we're going to go ahead and spray this with water. So I've got my sprayer here. Just a second here, I just refilled it, so it's got to fill up with pressure. There we go. I do like these sprayers. They work really well for just kind of getting everything moist, but not like layering on the water like I just was doing with the big, with the biochar that I was just adding. But this also, you can kind of spread it around a little bit, and then you can also just clean off your gloves pretty easily. So I will be using this. I've been using it frequently, but I'll be making sure to keep it full. There's a couple times it's emptied out, and I'm like, I'll just keep not using it. but it does make everything a lot easier, especially with watering and everything. And actually, we are probably going to pour a little bit more water in here. Now, one of the things that I've had with this system is I've had some issues with the water itself pooling underneath. And I'm sure right now if we were to pull this out, you're going to see some of this water is already pooling underneath. I'm putting a lot in the center here because we added the food to the center. I'm hoping it's running down, getting all that food nice and wet, so it'll heat up. Hopefully bring the worms in, bring in a good amount of food for them. But one of the things that I have had issues with, give me a second here, is that if I pull this up, I'm just going to grab this with both hands, you can see it's wet underneath here. And sometimes that kind of starts to smell a little bit. So next time I do an update, I'm going to add this underneath. This is a grate that I had from one of my closets that I redid with some wood and made it a little bit nicer. But this should be able to fit underneath here. It's got a little bit of a lip. It's going to pull it off the ground just a little bit. Actually, you know what? Let's just do that now. We'll let the water run out. But you can see this fits in there perfectly. Just gives a little bit of an angle and a little bit of a gap there, but not too much where it's like really raised off the ground. I'm not raising it up 15 feet or something like that. It's only a half an inch. And that'll just allow some of that air to get in underneath and make sure that this continues to work okay. So with that, we're going to go ahead and cover this back up. That is the update for our BN Link system, our first of our mega update here. So let's go over to our urban worm bag that has the African Nightcrawlers in it. So we're doing all of our African Nightcrawler systems first, and then we'll switch over to the European Nightcrawlers and then the red wigglers in the VermiBag. So be right back. All right, and here is our urban worm bag that has the African Nightcrawlers in it. And with that, let's go ahead and give this an update as well. This thing keeps getting caught. Not sure what happened to the zipper here, but it keeps getting caught to the side. There we go. All right, now this one looks a little bit better. You can see there's a lot of moisture in here. There's still a lot of millipedes in here. I'm trying to think of the word for a second there. But you can see this looks pretty good on top. You can see this stuff is still moist. As I said, I did feed all these before I went on vacation. Let's just dig in here and take a look. Oh, look at this. I already have our first large worm in here. Looks like it's nice and healthy, although it's not moving quite as much as I would hope. Another one right over here. This one is sort of running away. This is a smaller one. These are again African Nightcrawlers. Another one right here. Oops. So you can see these worms actually are looking pretty good. It's a little bit dry in here, but not too bad. All right, we're just gonna plow a little bit more of this stuff off to the side. Actually, let's just check. Like almost all the stuff on the side is gone. So they're doing a great job of really eating all the food in here and consuming everything. I don't know if there's a... Oh, we got some more worms over here. I just saw us trying to scamper away. So you can see right in here. Got another one. So they're starting to repopulate this system. It looks like it's doing pretty well. Material here looks fantastic, which it has been for a while. But we're going to go ahead and we're going to add, dig up a little bit over here in this corner as well. Just kind of maneuver everything around. See, sometimes these bins, they get a little bit compacted, but you can still see right here, you can see there's a lot of like holes in the dirt. And that's where the worms are sort of going through and different, maybe some of the millipedes. And they're making some holes in there where they're moving stuff around. That's what you really want to see in these systems. You want to see that they're able to move around. The material's good quality. Just dig one thing out of the center here. You can see there's a big chunk right here. Look at that. You can see there's a bunch of millipedes down in there. Hopefully you can see them. They're all over the place in this system. This thing just flakes right apart. No big deal. They're burrowing into the material. They're eating stuff. They're doing a great job. So we're going to go ahead and, again, I always feed in the center of these things because I want to make sure that it doesn't dry out. Here we go. This is some of the charcoal that we added, that homemade charcoal. It's going to turn into biochar. It's going to be nice and nutrient rich when I dump it in my yard. I'm just trying to dig out the centerpiece a little bit more. Break this up a little bit more too. That's the other thing that this charcoal does, is it kind of breaks up all the material, so it's not just all the same size and consistency. It's not all this soft material, but when you add in this charcoal, and you turn it into biochar, it's going to sort of make it where it's not as clingy like this is. This is pretty clingy, and it's very compact at the bottom. This is going to need to be emptied, which I'm hoping to do in a couple months before fall starts, because I really want to try to get my yard growing. I have a lot of real, like, I don't put a lot of chemicals in my yard, but at the same time I would like to make it where I have primarily grass with some other stuff growing in it, but I really want to make sure it's all natural. I don't want to add any chemical fertilizers. So that's what my goal is with my yard. Now, with that, we're going to go ahead and add a big spoonful of our food cycler output. And then I also have, and for here, I did some juicing the other day. And this is a mixture of pineapple. I know people say you can't put pineapple in, but pineapple's just fine. Carrot and cucumber. That was an okay juice. I wouldn't recommend it really for as much as some of the other juices I've made that are better, typically without pineapple. I don't know if the carrot and the pineapple went very well together, or at least my wife didn't really care for it, which is fine. So we'll probably try something else, but I do like using pineapple. Now I'm going to go ahead and wet this down. This bin's pretty dry. And again, I'm using my sprayer here. We're going to go ahead and mix this up a little bit so this all gets wet. And I can just wash my gloves off with this right here. This is going to get everything nice and damp. So that way it'll hopefully start to break down, and then the worms can go ahead and consume it. So with that, there we go. We got a lot of moisture in here. We're going to spread a lot of moisture around. Just kind of getting everything wet in the area. Now, one thing I probably should put in here as well, I'm just going to, give me a second here, I'm going to put this right across here. Turn this off. I almost forgot to add. I do want to add, I'm going to just dump this time, some of my biochar in here. I've got it in a bucket. We're just going to add a big spoonful like that, or a spoonful, but a big dump like that. Another one. Again, I just want to make sure that this stuff gets in there. I really need more of it. I'm actually running out of biochar. Now, if it runs through this system, it's fine, because, well, I do have a container underneath, so I don't mind dumping in water like that. If you keep something like this outside, you probably will want to dump in water like that. Now, again, this seems pretty dry up on top, even though we just added a lot of water. I'm going to go ahead and spray the top down. There was no moisture on the lid, so I'm not too worried about it getting too much moisture. I'm going to rinse my gloves off here real quick. The other thing I like about the sprayer is that I can really kind of clean my glove off pretty well after working in the bins. There we go. And this can turn a little bit into mud, and that's okay. It's going to dry back out. This is really only just the surface that we're getting wet here. This is not a deep watering, but we already added a lot of water to the center, which should really help it out. And there we go. I think this system is ready to be closed up. Well, actually, you know what? I think I'm going to add on a little bit more paper before we close this up. Let me grab the cardboard, and we're going to add just a sprinkling of that to the top. And I always have some ready to go in a big container nearby. There we go, just a couple handfuls on top here, I think. Just like that, just to add a little bit of a barrier. And actually, we'll just kind of spray down this top, get it a little bit damp, just to tap down the dust that comes off with the cardboard, but also just so it's not just soaking up all the moisture that comes up to the surface. There we go, just like that, just a little bit of moisture on top. There we go. All right, that looks good. I think we're done with this system. We can go ahead and close this one up and be ready for the next one. So now we're going to go to another urban worm bag. There we go. Fix the zipper. And this one has European. This one has African Nightcrawlers. The next one has European Nightcrawlers in it. So that one's ready to go. Let's go check out our next one. All right, here's our second urban worm bag here. This one has the European Nightcrawlers in it. No moisture on the lid here. Hopefully, looks like that light might be giving out. I don't know if it's going to run out of power here. They are battery operated. But let's go ahead and dig in here. First off, we've got our fruit fly trap in here. It's going to clean that off. There's usually a couple worms on the bottom of those. And let's go ahead and open this up. Oh wow, lots of cardboard on top. So they didn't really dig into this. This wasn't moist enough for them, I'm guessing, to really work at it. But let's go ahead and dig in here and just see what this looks like. You can see this has a lot of the charcoal in it that I've been talking about. And I have to say, I really like the fact that it loosens up the soil a little bit. We got a lot of mold in here, which is probably from the food that I had in here. You can see some of the Nightcrawlers in here. This feels a little bit dry. I'm hoping that maybe it's a little bit more moist in some of the other areas. Don't need to add any paper to this by any means, but like you can see in here, you got lots of worms. They look pretty healthy, but it does feel quite a bit dry. Let's dig a little bit more over here. You can see plenty of worms in here. So they're doing pretty good. Let's go ahead and just shovel this back like that. Oh, we got an avocado seed right here. Also, I'm seeing, looks like a pot worm right here. I don't know if you can see that, but there's a white worm. Normally they're pink when they're little. So that I don't think is I'm not sure what that is exactly. It could be a pot worm, maybe something else, but it doesn't look like it's a baby European Nightcrawler. They're usually, I think, pink. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and spread this back out over this side and just take a look at this other side over here. There's a lot of cardboard on top, so I really do not need cardboard in here. And around the side over here, you can see where they just sort of stop digging at this material. And you can see right here, nice big chunk. Lighting is not quite as good, I could tell over here. I'm gonna have to get some different lighting over here next time. This just comes right apart though. It's nice and dry. Worms working out in there, digging through. So lots of worms in this area, so there must have been a good food source over here. All right, so the worms look good in here. A little bit dry though, so we're gonna add something quite a bit with a lot of moisture to it, I think, to this system. Oh, here we go. We got an avocado peel right here that's still trying to break down too. These things do take a while to break down, these avocado peels. So a lot of times I try to break them up with my hands when they're frozen, but sometimes that doesn't happen. So we'll just throw that over here. But we're gonna add something in here that's really gonna get this going. We're gonna dig a little bit of a hole here. I'm not gonna add, as I said, any cardboard to this, I think, but we're gonna dig a hole to add this into. I'm not sure what this is. This is like a, I bet this is artichoke peels that I ground up. They're really fibrous-y. It's taking them a while to break down, unsurprisingly. All right, so we're gonna dig a little bit of a hole. We're gonna put a little bit of cardboard in that hole too. Just to protect the worms. Hopefully there are none there. And we're gonna put in some frozen food here. It has a lot of moisture. What is that? We've got a ton of watermelon. There we go. That's a huge thing of watermelon right there. It is still frozen, as you can see. But I've been thawing it out for the last hour maybe. So this is going to have a lot of water, a lot of moisture to get this thing back up to the moisture content it needs. So that should be a good food source for here. And with that, I don't know if I should add some water or not. I think I will add some of my, as I've been doing it to all these systems, some of my charcoal that's ground up. Hold on here. I just gotta stir the bucket a little bit and get it up into the, there we go. You can see all the little black dots on there. So that's all biochar or charcoal at this point. And that's gonna turn into biochar with all the stuff that's gonna be on there. So now we gotta cover this up. And I might need a little bit more cardboard just to make sure I fully cover everything. And maybe just a handful more. Not a whole lot. As I said, I've always got cardboard ready to go. I keep it in a big tote right nearby. Just a little bit more just to kind of cover everything. I like to keep everything covered so that way it doesn't dry out and the worms can get to it a little bit easier. This is not wet cardboard. A lot of times I throw in wet cardboard over the top. I've not been doing that this time. I didn't pre-moisten anything. So there we go. And now I think this system is also good. I'm not going to add any more moisture to it. Watermelon is, 98% water. So there's going to be a lot of moisture in this system already. And I think we're ready to go on to our VermiBag Max. So that's it for our urban worm bags. And this one had the European Nightcrawlers in it. So again, it looked pretty good. And got to keep moving on here. Oh, there's a spider that's going along the top of the bin. Oh, he's going to crawl down in there. All right, whatever. Not really worried. All right. Let's get to our last system, our VermiBag Max. All right, here is our final system here, our VermiBag Max. And let's go ahead and open this up. Now this one does tend to dry out a little bit faster than the others, but we'll see how it looks here. So first off, we do have our cover on here, and it does look a little bit moist. You can see a little bit of the moisture on there, which is a good sign, because when it dries out, I know that it has issues pretty quick. And you can see that the brown in the center is wet. So it's kind of interesting here. It looks like they really kind of finished off this section, but this section over here is not. It's starting to, oh, my lights are starting to die here. It's really starting to, as you can see here, they've really kind of broken down this part, but this part over here, not as much, but I can already see a ton of worms. Look at this. And this material here. Look at all the worms here. Oh, both my lights died. I'll have to power those up later. Luckily, I do have a couple bright lights in the basement, but you can see there's just a handful of worms in these areas where there's food. But when you go down to these areas, which are drier, not quite as many. But this area that had food in it, they're working it over like crazy. Now, again, they didn't really eat a lot of the cardboard since I've been gone. I thought that they would have. I'm just going to go ahead and dig this up a little bit more. You can see the material underneath looks great, but again, this top layer, it's just the worms going to town on this stuff. So what we're going to do here is we're going to add another feeding, and we're going to go pretty quick this time because, as I said, my lights are dying here. But this is a little bit dry, especially around the edges. So we are going to have to add some water first, I think. So what we're going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and grab, I think I'm going to just dump the charcoal mixture that I have left over in here. I've got very little left. I'm just going to move the cardboard over here. We're just going to go ahead and dump that right on the cardboard like that. There we go. Just scrape all that stuff out of there. And that's our charcoal mix. It's got water in it. It's got charcoal, but it's not a whole lot. So really what we're going to need to do is we're going to have to spray this down, I think, too. So let me grab my sprayer. All right, I got my sprayer right here. Oh, I got it locked. There we go. Got to spray this down quite a bit because there's just not a lot of moisture in here, especially around these edges. And that's what happens on this system because it's open. It sort of dries out. Design of the system, really, I actually requested this to have the netting on it to try it out. Usually during the summer it works a lot better, and then during the winter it really has a lot of issues keeping that moisture in, which is why I just add the tarp over top. But what's nice is I can adjust it and still keep this netted so bugs can't get in. Because if you open up these systems, well, then bugs can get in. So the netting on top allows me to dry this out if I need to, or I can add the tarp on top to just add some more moisture and keep it locked in when I need that as well. So, all right, I think we're pretty good right here. All right, stop watering for now. And this one, I do actually have some food we're going to put in here. Looks like all the worms have shot down to the bottom. So we're going to go ahead and throw in a bunch of frozen food. Come on, there we go. Make sure you get all the food out of there. And this has coffee grounds, or I think it's coffee grounds. I think this is tea grounds on the bottom, but coffee grounds right there. Carrots, which are nice and, you can grab them nice and easily. Looks like we've got some apple peel in here and some apple cores. So a good mixture of food in here, but not as much as I thought. I thought this was a little heavier than that. A lot of carrots, though. I think we will throw in maybe a handful of my food cycler mix here that I've got on the side. Maybe not quite as large as I put in some of the other systems, but I think we will do that here. We're just going to throw that in over top. There we go. It's about half the amount that I normally put in. And then we will need to get this wet because this is very dry. So back to the sprayer here. And then, as I said, we are going to have to cover this because this stuff has got to be covered up. It'll mold over, which I found out in my urban worm bag with the African Nightcrawlers is that this stuff will just tend to mold over. So I'm going to just kind of mix this up a little bit. Make sure it all gets nice and moist. It's okay if it runs down into the system as well. But we are going to have to put some fresh cardboard over this just to make sure. So I got to really make sure I add a lot of water here. And then I think I'm going to add the cardboard and then also wet the cardboard down that we put on top. So with that, let me grab the cardboard. Sorry if you can hear the whine from the sprayer. That's it, just trying to say that it's on. All right. So a couple handfuls. Remember, this is not pre-moistened this time. Normally I do pre-moisten it before I add this stuff. It's just a lot easier that way. So that way it's always just not absorbing water, but actually putting more water into the system. But I wasn't sure how these were going to look when I opened them up. And I decided not to pre-moisten because I would need multiple containers of it, which I can't really do, to do this big of an update. So while I'm sitting here doing this, I want everyone to go down in the comments and let me know what type of system you have. Do you have a tote like I've had in the past? Do you have these urban worm bags or VermiBags? Are you using a different system? I'd like to just know what everyone's using. So if you get a chance, go down into the comments and type in the type of system you're using. I'm really curious to know what the most popular systems are. I probably should put a poll out there, but maybe I'll get to that later. All right, let's just moisten this down now. At this point, I really can't add too much water to these. It can always run out the bottom, and if it runs out the bottom, I do have containers underneath that'll grab it. As long as it's running in straight lines and not like out the side at the top or some weird angle like that, it should run right into another container right underneath this, which is then the container that I use to harvest all the castings in when I do that. And as I said, I'm probably going to try to, in another month, grab all the castings out of here. I really want to make some teas, some charcoal, and actually add some of this to my yard after doing some work on it to try to get some fresh grass to grow, but also just give it a chance to fix my soil a little bit. It's very hard, very clay-like, and it causes a lot of issues with growing grass, but which I need to grow for my HOA. Again, leave a comment down below what you think of HOAs. I'm curious what everyone thinks of those. I can guess the comments, but go ahead. But with that, I just want to make sure that I'm not getting flagged, but also that, my yard looks decent without any chemicals or toxins or anything like that, like plant killers or anything. I usually let the clover grow and move on from there and just sort of mow it down when they're about to come through. I haven't been flagged for years on my yard, but I do like to try to keep it as much as I can. And also, all my neighbors know that my yard is all natural, so they let their dogs play in it and everything, which I love too. Because those dogs need some room to run around without having chemicals on their paws and everything, including my own. So with that, oops, you know what? I forgot to put the cover back on. Let me do that first. But with that, we're going to wrap up here our mega update. Thank you everyone for watching, and I hope that this was enlightening for you. And if you have any questions or comments, of course, leave them down below. I will have to recharge my lights, recharge my camera probably after this, and hopefully we'll come back pretty soon and I'll do an update on all these systems again. I will try not to wait the months that it's been probably, although as I said, I have been feeding them. It's just the fact that I haven't been able to record it. I just haven't had the time. So thank you for watching. Again, leave some comments down below. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you're using, and let me know what you think of HOAs. All right. I'll be back again. Thank you.